Hello everybody. Today we shall study the lesson The Kingdom of Fools. This story is a Kannada folk tale. Folk tale is a story which is passed from one generation to another. It is taken from the book Folk Tales from India written by A.K. Ramanujan. In the kingdom of fools, the king and his ministers both were unintelligent. The king and his ministers did not want to run their kingdom like other kings did. So they decided to do something different. They started treating night as day and day as night. They ordered that the work which was done at night would be done during the daytime, and the work which was done during the daytime will be done during the night time. They passed an order that everyone in the country will follow this. Nobody would sleep at night. The farmers would do farming at night, and the ones who had ran business during the night would do it at daytime. As soon as the sun rose, everybody would go to sleep. If someone would disobey the order, he would punish them to death. The people were scared that if they did not obey the king's order, they would be sentenced with death penalty. So they obeyed the order, although it was very strange to them. The king and his ministers, both the fools, were very happy that all the people in the kingdom were following their orders. But one day a saint arrived in the kingdom of fools, although with one of his disciples. He saw that it was a beautiful city. It was a sunny day, but could not find anyone around. They were surprised. Everyone asleep, and the writer says that not a mouse was stirring out. They could not find nothing around. The people had taught their cattle to sleep during the daytime, so every human as well as animals were sleeping. These two strangers to the kingdom of fools were not aware the kind of order which was passed in their city. So they were surprised to see that everyone was sleeping during daytime. They kept on wandering in the whole city, and as soon as it was night, everyone woke up and started doing their work. Business were doing business, and farmers were doing farming. The Guru and his disciple were very hungry. When the shops opened at night, they went to buy groceries. They were surprised to see that whatever they bought from the shop costed one dudu. The things were very cheap out there. Whether you buy a big bunch of bananas or you buy a big bag of rice, it costed only one dudu. Everything was the same price in the kingdom of fools. The guru and the disciple was very happy because the food in this kingdom was very cheap. You could buy a lot of food just for a rupee. The guru and the disciple were very happy because food in the kingdom was cheap. When the guru and the disciple cooked and ate their food, the guru realized that the kingdom was a kingdom of fools and decided not to stay there any longer because it was unsafe for them. The wise guru told his disciple that the place was not right for them and asked him to leave at once. This disciple was a foodie. He loved to eat, and that is why he did not want to leave this place because the food was very cheap. Guru tried to make his disciple understand and told him that everyone out there was a fool and are very dangerous. The kingdom would not last for a long time and they would harm them too. This disciple is not foresighted like his guru and could not understand what his guru was trying to say. He wanted to live there only and enjoy the cheap food. Finally, the guru left alone, leaving the disciple behind. The disciples stayed back in the kingdom of fools every day. He ate a lot of food due to which he became very, very fat like a bull. One day a thief entered a merchant's house. He made a hole in the wall to gain access. When he was about to move out of the house, after looting all the things, the wall broke down and fell on his head and he died there only. The thief's younger brother went to the king and complained that his brother was following the ancient trade. While he was working, the wall fell on his head and he died. The thief's brother was taking advantage of the king's foolishness. He said that the merchant whose wall has fallen down on his head was the culprit. He should have made a strong wall. He requested the king to punish the merchant and get compensated for his family because of his death. The king was so foolish that he did not consider the fact that the dead man was committing theft at the time of his death. He only thought that the man died because the wall fell on him and the owner of the house whose wall fell on him had to be punished. So he called the merchant to his court. As soon as the merchant appeared, the king asked his name. Then the king asked him whether he was at home when the dead man, that is the thief, was burgling the house. The merchant replied that he was at home only. The thief made a hole in the wall and entered his house, and when he was trying to go out, the wall fell on him because it was weak. Then the king told the merchant that he was guilty. He did not do anything wrong. Due to his weak wall, the thief died, and how he can be punished for that? The merchant pleaded in front of the king and requested that, my lord, it was not my fault. The wall was weak because the person who made the wall did not construct it properly. Hence, you should not punish me. And further, he added that the wall was made during the father's time. So, this wall was made during his father's time, so he should not be punished for that. He knew him as he lived nearby, the person who constructed this wall. So the king sends his soldier to call the bricklayer who built the wall. They tied his hand and feet and brought him in the king's palace. The bricklayer was brought to the court. Then the king asked him that did he build the wall, and he replied that yes, he did it. The king said that the man had built a weak wall. The wall fell on the poor thief's head and killed him. The bricklayer could not do anything. The bricklayer would be punished for the death of the thief. Everyone in the court was passing the blame from one person to another. When the king was about to pass an order to execute the bricklayer, he requested the king to listen to him. He agreed that he did not make the wall properly. It was because of a girl who was roaming around in the street and her anklets were making a jingling sound. Due to her anklets' jingling sound, he was not able to concentrate on his work and so built a weak wall. It was not his mistake. It was the fault of the girl. He added on that he knew where this dancing girl lived. She should be punished instead of him. The king was satisfied with the bricklayer's explanation. He was convinced with him. He tells that this case is very complicated and will not be able to solve it so easily. He ordered his messengers to get the dance girl. The dancing girl had become an old woman and she was trembling as she entered the court. The king asked her that many years ago was she a dancing girl, was roaming around in the lane while the bricklayer was constructing the wall. Her movement distracted him. She confirmed him. He told her that as she was moving around, her anklet jingling sound distracted the bricklayer. Due to this, he could not do his work properly. He built a bad wall which fell on the thief and he was killed. It was because of her that the thief died and she would be punished with death. The dancing girl transferred the blame onto another person. She said that she was roaming around in this lane again and again because she had to visit the goldsmith shop. She had given some gold to him to make jewelry out of it. He was a dishonest person. He was making excuses for not making her ornaments on time. He kept on asking her to come after day. Due to this, she had to go to the house at least a dozen times. So the dancing girl said that it was not her fault, but it was of Goldsmith. Further on, this dancing girl says that while the bricklayer saw her and got distracted, it was the fault of the goldsmith because whom she was roaming in the lane again and again. Now the king says that the poor dancing girl was totally right. He thought a lot and finally said that now they knew who the real culprit was. He ordered to bring the goldsmith. The bailiffs in the king's court went in search of the goldsmith and brought him to the court. The goldsmith was hiding inside his shop as he feared being arrested. When he was brought in front of the king, he told his side of the story. He said that dancing girl was right. He made many excuses and made his visit to his shop again and again. It was not his fault. He had an order from a rich merchant and they had a wedding at their place and were in a hurry to get their orders, and that is why the dancing girl's work was getting delayed. Then the king asked the goldsmith to name the rich person who was an obstacle in finishing the poor woman's jewelry. The goldsmith said that the merchant was the same merchant whose house wall has fallen. Justice has come full circle means that the story ended at the same person from whom it had started. The thief died under the wall of the same merchant whose jewelry this goldsmith was making. Once again the merchant was called. He was crying and he knew that the king was foolish and he would give him death sentence. He said that it was not he who had ordered the jewelry, but it was his father. His father was dead and it was none of his fault. Now the king consulted his ministers and gave the decision that the merchant's father was the murderer. The thief died because of him. As the merchant's father was not alive, someone had to be punished for the crime. So he said that merchant's son, who had inherited everything from his father, would have to take the punishment for his wrongdoing as well. He said that when he had seen the merchant for the first time at that moment, he had a feeling that he was the culprit. The king announced that now the merchant would have to die. When the new weapon was getting ready, the minister felt that the merchant was very thin and he could not be executed in this way. He told this to the king and the king got worried. The king got an idea that they should catch hold of a man who was fat enough to be executed with the stake. The merchant would not be put to death because he was too thin to be executed with a stake. They thought of punishing another man instead of this merchant, one who was fat enough to be executed with a stake. Finally, the king sent his servants around the kingdom to look for a man who was fat enough to be executed with a stake. And finally, they found the guru's disciple who had become very fat because of overeating. The disciple said that he was a sannyasi. He had not done anything wrong. He was innocent. Then why were they taking him? The king's servant said that he was innocent, but they were ordered to catch hold of a fat man who could be executed with a stake, and he was fit for it, fat enough, and that is why they were taking him along. The disciple is reminded of his guru. Guruji, who was a wise man, had told him that it was a city of fools and they could harm him. Now they were taking him along to execute him. The helpless disciple prayed to his guru and asked him to come to his rescue. The guru could visualize the disciple's message due to his magical powers. He could see everything. He could see the future, the present, and the past. And he could see everything in the vision. The guru arrived there to save his disciple. The disciple was trapped in a difficult and serious situation. They were about to execute him, although he had not done anything wrong. So the guru came to rescue him from this situation. As the guru met his disciple, he scolded him because he did not obey him and stayed back. He whispered something in his ears. The guru tried to trap the king in his words by calling out, "Wise man." He asked him who was greater between a guru and his disciple. The king replied that of course the guru was greater. The guru said that for this reason the king must execute him before executing the disciple. So here the king is quite surprised. When the disciple heard his guru's word, he started shouting that he wanted to die first. When the guru and disciple started arguing that who would die first, the king got confused. He asked the guru that why did he want to die first? They had caught the disciple because he was a fat and they wanted a fat man who could be executed with the stake. The guru refused to reply. He said that he wanted to die before his disciple died. The guru asked the king to promise him that they would execute him first if he told him the secret about why he wanted to be executed first. The king promised that he would execute him first. Then the guru told the king that they had roamed around the whole world but had not seen a city and a king like him. He added that the stake which he would use to kill the disciple was the stake of justice. As it was new, it had not killed any criminal. Further, he said that one who died first for this stake would be reborn as the king of the kingdom. At night, the king and the minister went to the prison where the guru and his disciple were kept. They wore the clothes of the guru and his disciple so that they resembled them. As it was told to the servants, they came and took them along and put them into the stake for execution. In this way, with his intelligence, the guru was able to execute his foolish king and the foolish minister. When the dead bodies of the king and the ministers were taken away to be thrown, the people trembled to see the dead bodies of the king and his minister. Everyone was trembling because the dead bodies were not of the guru and the king. Instead, they were the bodies of the king and the minister. Everyone in the kingdom was mourning the death of the king and the minister. In the morning, some people thought of the king and the disciple and felt that they should go to them. As the guru and the disciple were planning to leave the kingdom, the people stopped them. The people of the kingdom thought that they needed a king and a minister, so they requested the guru and his disciple to be the new king and the minister of the kingdom. The disciple agreed quickly, but it took some time to make the guru agree upon this. So the guru agreed to be the king of the kingdom, but on one condition from them, that everyone would work in the day and sleep at night. Also, the cost of things would vary from not to be one to do for anything, as was the system earlier. It would be like any other place where everything had differences. Finally, the guru converted the kingdom of fools into a normal kingdom.